In 1936, a man calling himself Bashir ducks off a busy Bombay street and slips into a photography studio. He's looking for someone. The photographer is immediately terrified. Bashir is asking for a high-ranking operative of the banned Communist Party of India, a question that usually meant the British secret police were at your door. This is Michael Carritt. He is an elite British officer who has arrived carrying a massive sum of money to secretly fund the revolution. While the British Empire hunted for subversives in the streets and villages, a vital link in the resistance was operating from the top of their own command chain. Carritt was born into the highest echelons of English society. His father was a professor at the University of Oxford, and he was groomed for imperial leadership. By 1928, he had joined the Indian Civil Service. This was the steel frame of the British Empire, a tiny bureaucratic elite granted immense power over the subcontinent. Carritt was posted to Bengal, a region the British considered their most dangerous and heavily surveilled territory. The colonial system assumed his loyalty to the crown was absolute. Because of his race and his education, he was invisible to the very security apparatus he was about to subvert. As an assistant magistrate in rural Bengal, Carritt's job transitioned from administration to enforcement. In places like Bengal, he saw the reality of British justice: courts without juries, harsh sentences for minor infractions, and the practice of collective punishment, where the state would target an entire village of farmers for the actions of one person. Witnessing this systemic cruelty, Carritt began receiving banned communist literature mailed by his brothers in England. He decided he could no longer serve the crown. Seeing the mechanics of the empire up close destroyed his faith in the system, turning an architect of colonial rule into an agent of its downfall. Carritt's rebellion began in the courtroom. Whenever a case pitted an Indian civilian against a European, he consistently ruled in favor of the Indian. The authorities noticed, but they didn't investigate his loyalties. They moved him to a different department to avoid a public scandal involving a white judge. Instead, they transferred him to the political department in Kolkata's Writers' Building. This was the intelligence hub responsible for monitoring the very revolutionaries Carritt was trying to help. He now had direct access to top-secret files, surveillance targets, and troop movements, all of which he smuggled out to the Communist Party. The bureaucracy's desire to protect its reputation had placed a communist mole at the center of its intelligence network. One of those revolutionaries was P.C. Joshi, the hunted General Secretary of the Communist Party of India, who needed a place to hide in the city. Carritt hid Joshi inside his own elite apartment on Park Street. He passed the most wanted communist in India off to his neighbors as his personal bodyguard. By 1937, the British realized intelligence was leaking from the Writers' Building and launched a search for the mole. The investigation was assigned to Carritt's own department. He spent his days reading the intelligence reports, hunting for himself, signing them, and forwarding them up the chain of command. Racial bias made the truth invisible. The British were hunting for a local clerk, unable to imagine a traitor among their own Oxford-educated elite. By 1938, the risks were compounding. Carritt knew he needed a way out before his luck ran out. The ICS had a rigid hierarchy where white officers moved into higher authority, but a bigoted policy existed. If a promotion forced them to report to an Indian superior, they could choose early retirement with full pension. Carritt used this clause to safely extract himself from India, taking his pension and returning to England. The empire's institutional racism provided a funded escape route for a man who had spent years working to destroy it. Shortly after he arrived home in 1940, the government canceled his pension. Carritt assumed he had narrowly escaped on mere suspicion. 40 years later, he received a phone call from a government archive asking for permission to unseal his classified file for a researcher. Carritt requested a copy and found that the government had documented everything: his meetings, his leaks, and his direct ties to the Communist Party. They had enough evidence to prosecute him for treason, yet they let him walk away. A public trial of an ICS officer would have shattered the myth of British colonial supremacy. They chose to hide the truth to protect the reputation of the empire. Carritt risked his life and career to dismantle the very system he was hired to protect. He proved that imperial power relies as much on its own unshakable arrogance as it